Come on. Come on, Phil. Me?
Hey, well, kia ora, good morning everybody. Welcome to NZTA. Can I just acknowledge the Mayor and say it's good to have you here, Phil. It's also good, I know we're trying to keep it on the down low, but it's great to be in the most livable city in New Zealand, as I've seen reported this morning. I'm also here with Vanessa Wiener and Hamish Campbell, our local MPs, but importantly also our great Minister of Infrastructure and Transport, and Chris Bishop. And it's a real pleasure to be here today as we announce our plans to prioritise upgrading State Highway 76, Brougham Street, as a road of regional significance. And this, of course, is going to deliver quality transport infrastructure to boost our economic growth and our productivity, as well as obviously a new overbridge between Collins and Simeon Streets that will make that stretch of highway just so much safer. If you're under any illusions, this year is all about growth, and modern reliable infrastructure, and a great road network is a key contributor to that growth. It's more than just a fresh layer of tar seal. As I said, it's about growing our economy. It needs to be faster, it needs to be easier for people to get to where they need to get to, and importantly on this road also for freight to actually be able to move around the country and to be able to get to the ports as well. It'll mean quicker trips to work in the morning and more time in the evenings to spend with our families, which is rather than gridlock, which is a good thing. And it also means that businesses can move those goods faster, and we can all sleep a lot safer in the knowledge that that stretch of highway like this is much safer for motorists and pedestrians alike. And investing in our transport network, as I said, is a key plank of our plan to upgrade and power up economic growth. The reality is that in recent years, investment in our local roads and our state highways has failed to keep pace with what was needed, and the result has been a deteriorating road network and increasing frustration for Kiwis. The previous national government's Roads of National Significance program, I think, delivered some of New Zealand's most high quality and safest roading projects, and that's why we've chosen to bring back a pipeline of quality transport projects that will actually modernise our transport network while also creating significant employment opportunities within our contracting sector. Our roads of national significance and regional significance, I think, will ultimately deliver a transport system that New Zealanders can rely on for generations to come. And with that, I'll pass over to Chris Bishop to take you a little bit more through the detail of this project.
Thanks, Prime Minister. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here in Christchurch. I can confirm that Cabinet has agreed to provide funding to the New Zealand Transport Agency to deliver the State Highway 76 Brougham Street upgrades as a road of regional significance, including an overbridge between Collins and Simeon Streets. And I've got to say, when I learned that the road was called Simeon Street, I said to Simeon Brown, the former Minister of Transport, is that someone in your office just mistyped that? But no, indeed not. Between Collins and Simeon Street. So as Christchurch people will know, 45,000 vehicles per day on State Highway 76. It's a key freight route servicing commercial, industrial and residential areas to the south of Christchurch, the major freight route to Littleton Port and the inland port in Rolleston. In May last year, the government confirmed funding for the pre-implementation phase of the project to ensure a no-frills and value-for-money approach that could be completed by NZTA, strategic property purchases which took place. This is a really important project to the local community, and we now have delivery funding now confirmed by Cabinet. So the overbridge between Collins and Simeon Street is expected to begin by mid-2025 this year and be completed within 2 years. 1,000 pedestrians and cyclists use the current level crossing. Huge number of people on active modes of transport crossing a busy state highway. So delivering the overbridge is a real priority, and I've heard from Christchurch folk that is a priority, and it will ensure that people, particularly local school children, getting to and from school, can safely cross a state highway. So very important. There are wider improvements to the corridor, including T2 lanes, intersection improvements and a shared path along the southern side of Brougham Street from Opawa Road to Simeon Street, and that will start as soon as NZTA is able to, once property and consenting requirements are completed. Overall, the aim of the project is to improve access, safety and connectivity, both east and west along Brougham Street and north and south, to and from the industrial area and the Christchurch CBD. It will also improve travel time, reliability. This is an important project. It's one that the government is proud to deliver alongside NZTA, and we are prioritising it as a road of regional significance. We're looking forward to construction starting as soon as possible and being back in Christchurch to turn the first sod in the coming months. And you may get the Prime Minister and I both coming back to do that. With that, happy to take your questions.
Can I just pass over to Mayor Phil?
Yes, sorry.
Hello everyone, and thank you Prime Minister, thank you Chris. This is truly a fantastic day for Christchurch. The amount of work that we I have done with government officials to get Pages Road Bridge brought forward, and I thank you for that. That's absolutely fantastic. And now this is happening. This is really going to be a game changer for Brougham Street and make things flow a lot better. So I'm really looking forward to this kicking off. Might even get someone to bring a digger along, and we'll get stuck into it. So red letter day for Christchurch. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Well done, mate. Hey, well, thank you, Phil, and it's been good to be partnering with you in a number of projects here in Christchurch and Canterbury in general. With that, happy to take your questions.
What is the total cost of this project now?
I'll let Chris talk to that.
So once a contract is confirmed and we have final scope of the project, we will know the exact amount, but it will be roughly between about $100 and $150 million. Final amount will be released in due course, but it's a roughly $100 to $150 million project.
And when can we expect that?
Later in the year, once contracting has gone through in terms of delivery, and that's the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and signed, sealed and delivered. What we've announced today is that funding has been made available, and it's drawn down, and contracting can start, and it's been drawn down from a TAG contingency in budget 2024, and the funding comes from that contingency that Cabinet has agreed to draw down.
What's considered a road of regional significance? What's the bar?
NZTA could give you a technical answer around road specifications and things like that, but essentially it's a continuation in a regional sense of the roads of national significance. So if you think about the roads of national significance, they have national level benefits at a national scale with national level funding. Roads of regional significance are beneath that and are important to a particular region and have funding that is appropriately sized to match. So if you think about it, the roads of national significance tend to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars and above category, in some cases more than $1 billion. This is around, as I say, the $100 to $150 million mark. But it is an important road regionally for Christchurch and the people of Canterbury, a variety of different parts of Christchurch. 45,000 vehicle movements per day. It's a substantial sum of vehicles that when the road needs an upgrade.
Cargo and freight.
Cargo and freight.
What's happened in the last 9 months to change the government's mind on funding this? Is it a result of you now being the Transport Minister? Would you be pushing for this?
No, actually Cabinet agreed to draw down the funding at the tail end of last year when Simeon Brown was the Transport Minister, so I'm not claiming any credit, and the change of Minister doesn't reflect anything like that at all. What's been happening over the last few months is NZTA has been actually working away on property acquisition and on the design work required to get on with the project, and they can talk you through the details of that. So there's been quite a lot of work been going on in the last few months, that what they call the pre-implementation phase. So the work's been happening. What we're announcing today is that the funding has been confirmed. We have made a deliberate decision as a Cabinet to release the funding from that TAG contingency so that we can give certainty and finality and get on with that project as quickly as possible.
But I guess what changed in terms of the priorities, because there were always that figure of 45,000 vehicle crossings and the amount of pedestrian use. So in the announcement it said in further years you would reconsider. So what changed?
Well, there is always pressure on the transport budget, and the government doesn't have an unlimited sum of money to spend on transport in the same way we don't have an unlimited sum of money to spend on anything. And so it's always about making those trade-offs and the prioritisation. In Budget 2024, we did set up a TAG contingency to add to the roads of national significance and roads of regional significance funding class delivered by the New Zealand Transport Agency, and we've made a decision as a government to bring forward that money or draw down that contingency because we hear the concerns of the Mayor and local MPs and Christchurch people that this is a really important project. We want to get on with it. 45,000 vehicle movements, a lot of freight to and from the port, 1,000 kids crossing the road, up to 1,000 kids and people crossing that state highway every day. We've got to crack on with it. It's a project that can be delivered quickly, and we want to crack on with it and do it because we're determined to see progress in this country and deliver jobs and growth for Kiwis.
Is this a sign of more investment in the South Island to come in the transport space, or is this kind of to...
Well, I just say to you, I think there's a tremendous investment in the South Island. If you think about what's happening with the Hope Bypass in Nelson, you think about the commitment in Pegasus, you think about the commitment in the Ashburton Bridge, you think about the package for some other roads in Canterbury and also in Queenstown. We've just announced our Dunedin Hospital plan, which we said we'd always build a great hospital. We can do it with the budget budget that we've got, but we're going to build a great hospital. So be under no illusions, we're deeply committed to the South Island, and when you have a Prime Minister from Christchurch, it's a big priority. Yep.
Prime Minister, great to hear you here talking roads, but are you regretting in any way your decision not to get up to Waitangi?
No, I've always believed, as I said very strongly, that actually I want to get out and see how Waitangi Day is celebrated across the whole of New Zealand, and it's obviously celebrated differently in different parts of the country. But also, I've also had a personal belief that I want to go out with iwi where the treaty was actually signed. And so to go to Onuku Marae with Ngāi Tahu, which was a very significant, where Ngāi Tahu signed the treaty, is very important. Akarawa and Devotional, as you know, for me, is a place that I spend a lot of my summers, and I've spent a lot of time with my family as well, so it's pretty special for me. And I'm just of the view, we've got senior ministers in Waitangi, we've got senior ministers here with Ngāi Tahu and Canterbury, and across the country. And, there's precedent. We've had Prime Ministers not go every year to Waitangi as well. So I think it's important we get out and we celebrate Waitangi Day and what this great country is all about, and I'm really looking forward to tomorrow.
There are a lot of voices up there, though, saying this year of all years was important for you to come. What would you say to them?
Well, look, I mean, I meet with iwi leaders. I met with significant iwi leaders before Christmas in my office in Wellington, actually talking about what we can do together around powering up growth, improving outcomes for Māori, and what they really want is higher incomes and a better economy that gives them more choices and shared prosperity, and that's what we've been focused on, and we've got some good work happening already, but we want a lot more of it. I've also been to Ratana, I've been to Waitangi the last 2 years, and I feel quite comfortable in that decision. And when you, as I said, you look back over the history of New Zealand, we've had Prime Ministers not go every year. I actually went, when I was before politics, I went with Bill English to Ngāti Whātua in his first year, as it was first Waitangi as Prime Minister, and where he didn't go to Waitangi, and it was a really special time, and that also made me think deeply about, actually it's good to get out and celebrate the signing of the treaty across the country.
Minister, will you commit to going to Waitangi next year?
Look, not sure, but not averse to going to Waitangi at all. I love going, but the point is I also want to celebrate Waitangi Day across New Zealand, and I think it's important that we do that. I think, Waitangi Day is a really significant day for New Zealand. It's our, celebrating our foundation as a country and the partnership that we have, and it's actually important to go out and experience it across the country. And one of the things I've always been even doing on the 6th is quietly going to a very small community event between the Takapuna Yacht Club and Ngāti Whātua Rake, groups that you wouldn't naturally think that would come together as frequently as they do, and it's been an awesome occasion, and so I want to get out and celebrate.
Prime Minister, unemployment is rising under your government. Do you take responsibility for that?
Well, it's not a surprise. It is a lag effect. When you increase government spending and you drive up inflation and you drive up interest rates and you have the economy, slow down or go into recession, the last of the lag effect is actually rising levels of unemployment. So, I'm aware that obviously, the forecasts have had it peaking in the low fives, and we've seen that announcement today. But that is why we are hell-bent on actually driving economic growth, because we've broken the back of the cost of living. Yes, we've got work to do to keep spending under control. We've driven inflation down, we've driven interest rates down, we've offered people tax relief, we've got rising levels of confidence in a business, farmer and consumer sense. But this year is all about translating into growth, and that's why we're here. Because we're not going to do business as usual. We really need to say yes to things and say a lot less no to things. We have to prioritise economic growth now, because it's economic growth that will create those jobs and higher paying jobs, and that actually is what gives families all across New Zealand more choices about how they get to live their life. So that's why we're here. That's why we've come out of the blocks and gone to the UAE to do a free trade deal. That's why I've restructured my team to make sure it's very clear about the focus on economic growth. That's why you've seen us say things like, getting rid of the blanket speed limit reductions across the country, where we can save people's time and actually make this country more productive. People are working incredibly hard, but for the last 30 years we have not been able to lift people's living standards sufficiently, and that's what we have to focus on now, and that means economic growth.
In terms of that growth, are you worried about a global trade war in light of what's happened this week?
Look, I mean, you've seen, what's happened. It's certainly a lot more rock and roll, is the way I describe the global environment at the moment. But President Trump has been elected with a mandate to represent and act in the national interests of the US. He's had clear concerns, obviously, around the border, and you've seen the conversation of a proposal around tariffs and then the withdrawal of tariffs over the last 48 hours. And I'm acting in New Zealand's national interests, and that's why we've been out and about in the world, That's why I'm going to Indonesia and Vietnam at the end of the month. That's why I'll be then going to India. That's why I'll then be going into the UK. That's why I'll then be going into China this year, to make sure that we are actually making the case New Zealand is open for business. We're welcoming investment in this country. We've got a lot of infrastructure to get built. We've got amazing companies that need good joint venture partners, and our iwi organisations are some of our best JV partners with some of that capital, and they want to participate in that.
But we don't want these tariffs coming on at all, do we?
No, New Zealand does well when we have a trade flows freely around the world, and it's governed by rules and laws. And I make that case about the international rules-based system and why it's so important, as I do with other countries when I'm in those formal forums with other leaders as well. And I'll continue to do so. But for us right now, our focus is on growth, 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 and that means seriously we want to export a lot more to the world. We will not get rich just selling stuff to each other within New Zealand. As a country of 5 million people, where 1 in 4 of our jobs are tied to trade, and the companies that export around the world pay their workers 7% higher wages, that is a real opportunity for us. And so that's why we want to double the value of the exports in the next 10 years. But on the other hand, we have to do a better job of attracting inbound investment to New Zealand so that we can get roads built faster and quicker than what the government could do on its own with its own finances, so that we can actually get the right JV partners helping our New Zealand companies grow and take on the world and become larger and bigger. Why? Because all of that leads to higher wages because of that economic growth, and that gives families and people more choices, and ultimately what's in their back pocket and what comes into the government's coffers is how we afford things like education and healthcare. So we've got to get a bigger, better economic engine in place to power up the investment in public services.
And sorry, just one last question from me. It's around the foreign investment fund tax. Foreign investors say this is a double tax and puts off Silicon Valley and other talent from coming here. Is your instinct to do away with this tax and help stop barriers for top talent and investors to come here? I'm
well aware of the issues, and I have a lot of sympathy for that position. As you've seen our Minister of Finance talk in the last few days, and myself, we are very open to looking at a range of tax measures which we'll be considering as part of the budget in May.
36,000 people, Prime Minister, have lost their job in the last year. Is that careful economic management?
Well, it's incredibly concerning, and it's incredibly worrying for those people who have lost their jobs, and it is incredibly tough for them. There's no doubt about it. But this is why good economic management really matters, because if you really want to increase government spending by 84%, and you want to go through massive amounts of inflation increases as we saw under Labour, and then the only thing you're left to do is take interest rates up and take money out of people's back pockets as a result. And because interest rates are high, people don't have cash to spend in the economy and businesses can't invest, then what happens? The economy slows down and goes into recession, and when that happens, businesses have lost their business and their demand. They've got high inflation, high interest rate costs, and the last thing they're left to do is lay off folk from their businesses. And they don't want to do it, and we don't like them doing it, but that is a consequence. If you don't manage the books and you don't manage inflation, you end up with unemployment. So we know it's a tragedy, but we are doing everything we can, and that is why we prioritise growth, growth, growth above everything else that we need to do this year.
The new benefit sanctions, though, that you've introduced recently, aren't you penalising people through no fault of their own if they've lost their jobs?
What we're saying to people is your job, if you're on job seeker benefits, so let's separate that out from other entitlements that people may have, is that we have a pretty reasonable expectation is we are always going to have a safety net to back people in tough times, but your job is to look for a job. And that means pretty simple obligations. Get a resume together, show up for the job interviews, and make sure you meet with your case manager. And I think when your fellow taxpayer is actually paying for that support through their taxes, they would reasonably expect that on their fellow New Zealander. The good news is this, the people that have actually seen a lot rapid compliance, as people have been alerted to whether they are or are not compliant. But you're not penalised for not having a job, you're penalised for not looking for a job.
All right.
Okay, thank you team, appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you.
In the most livable city in New Zealand. But let's keep it on the down low.